into an all-new edition of Daily Faceoff Live, coming to you live from Montreal, just a few feet away from the ice at Bell Center. And last night, it got interesting. We are going to break all that down and more and get set for what should be a heck of a hockey game on that ice surface at the Bell Center tomorrow night. The show is a presentation of Bet365. Download the app today. Use the promo code NATION, whatever the moment. It's never ordinary at Bet365. Tyler Yaremchuck and Frank Seravalli with you. And Frank, listen, last night maybe a bit more of a predictable outcome than night one, but still thrilling nonetheless.
And that's not really what the storyline was for most of the game.
Yeah.
I mean, we're a Matt Boldy goal away late second period from entering the third, tied 1-1 between the U.S. and Finland. Obviously, they poured it on after that, after an incredible start to the third period. And the Tkachuk brothers, if you're a fan of Mighty Ducks from back in the day, took on the role of the Bash brothers. 11 hits combined between the two of them. They set the tone right from their first shift of the game, nearly sending a Finnish player over the boards. And after that, they were absolute menaces around the net once they were put together on the same line with Jack Eichel. So we kind of wondered before the tournament why they didn't start the tournament together. You actually asked Matthew Tkachuk why he wasn't skating with Brady. Kind of gave you a snippy answer to start, but I think you were onto something.
Yeah, maybe I'll remind him of that. I absolutely won't. Let's kick things off. We're going to do some deadline countdown stuff in a bit with Frank's Deadline Matchmaker article. Jon Goyens is here at La Cage in Montreal. He's going to join us live in about 10 minutes. But first, it is our nightcap from last night, and it is brought to you by our friends at JP Wiser's. Proud to be the official whiskey of the NHL, and JP Wiser's, it's the official whiskey of game night. And Frank, let's start with that Tkachuk takeover. And I will say, not just the two of them, there were a handful of American forwards who were very, very physical early on. Even a guy like Jack Eichel, who, if you watch Golden Knights games, he's not always going out there and mixing it up. His first shift, I noticed him lunge out of his way to try and make contact. Mike Sullivan, before the game in the American room, even said to the players, we want that American swagger. And I do think, even though the game was tighter for longer than we thought it would be, that American swagger was evident.
It was, and it was a totally different game than night one.
Yeah.
You've got high-end speed and skill, Team Canada and Sweden. You've got the U.S. and Finland, and for the first part of it, it was a boxing match. And maybe that's to be expected, right? Because I was sitting next to our colleague Anthony DeMarco in the press box last night, and he said to me, do you think there's some redundancy on the Team USA lineup? And I said, no, it's not redundancy. What it is a theme. This forward group in particular are big, heavy, strong players. Even some of the younger guys in this tournament, Matt Boldy, for instance, big guy, big frame, who can play a heavy game. So that's the mission and mandate for this U.S. team, is they've got the firepower and the skill, but they're going to want to play in a way that they can bowl you over. And that's what's going to make for Saturday night here in this building so incredibly fun to watch, because Canada's not going to shrink away from that. Mm-hmm. You're going to try and run over Sidney Crosby or Connor McDavid. You won't be the first to try and do it, but then they're going to throw Sam Bennett back into the lineup. And then it's going to be a firecracker line with Seth Jarvis and Brad Marchand. And so you can see the adjustments. Canada watched last night's game. You see the Tkachuks and their ability to take over that game. They were a handful, and probably not a surprise when you watch both of them play individually. But if you're the Ottawa Senators, you had to watch last night's game and be absolutely drooling, because that was the first meaningful game that Brady Tkachuk has ever played as a pro hockey player. What happens when he gets to the playoffs, or if the Ottawa Senators make it to the playoffs? You've got a ready-made playoff handful.
Absolutely. And yourself and Jason Greger went in depth on that today on the DFO Rundown. New episode going to drop a little bit later on this afternoon. Frank, in a short tournament like this, we've put a lot of emphasis on being able to come together as a team. When you look at this American group, the way they all seem to be on the same page out of the gates. And also, again, we've talked about, and some of the fans out there who looked at this tournament went, there's nothing on the line. This Team USA team rallying around the Goudreau's, his jersey in the locker room after, the way they spoke about him after the game. They really do seem to be coming together for a bit of a bigger purpose here too, which is heartwarming.
No doubt about that. From the moment that Guy Gaudreau was brought in to be part of this team, the team dinner on Monday night to then having him out for the skate at practice on Tuesday. Look, the Columbus Blue Jackets obviously are carrying him with them all season. Mm-hmm. His jersey also travels with the team. To have that be a player of the game memento, and to to keep his memory alive and keep talking about him. obviously that's not going to be leaving them. They all know that Johnny Gaudreau would have been on this team, would have been part of this tournament, and everyone sorely misses him and his brother Matthew. So just a beautiful scene.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's necessarily the only rallying cry for this team. You know, this environment, it was somewhat hostile already against Finland. You could tell that Canadian fans wanted Finland to win. That's the team they were rooting for, and not just for some of the Montreal Canadiens' connections to that team, but also because, let's be honest, right now there is an anti-American stance. Some of it's geopolitical, some of it's a rivalry, some of it's, hey, we just don't like Austin Matthews from the Toronto Maple Leafs being the Team USA captain. So the Tkachuks did talk after the game about this, the boos during the national anthem fueling them, and that it fired them up a little bit more. And they also mentioned in a very short way, we didn't like it.
Yeah.
So if you thought that was something on Thursday, wait until Saturday night at about 8:08 p.m. as they're doing the national anthems.
Yeah. One more thought on Team USA before we move along. We talked about a lot about Quinn Hughes and his absence on this blue line. And one guy that we had pointed out as, hey, watch him to step up was Zach Werenski. 3 points for him in game one. What did you make of his game? What did you make of how that Team USA blue line looked?
It looked pretty good. They were pretty efficient in moving the puck. I thought Werenski was fantastic and a huge plus for this team, the way that he's played all season long. And, I did think they had some hiccups on the power play. We'll have Jon Goyens on. He's the power play expert. But that power play actually took momentum away from this team in the beginning stages of that game. And look, Adam Fox has a Norris trophy in his trophy case. Certainly a capable defenseman and can play on that power play, but it's just not the same as having Quinn Hughes.
Yeah, that's fair. A quick thought on the Finns now, who were right in that game. And if you want to take maybe a glass half full look at that game, even though it was a 6-1 final, there were 3-4 chances in the second period. Eric Haula missing on a breakaway, the 2-on-1 that I think was Barkov and Rantanen that they couldn't convert on. One of those goes in. Do you get USA on their heels? Do you get them to deviate from their game? I still think it's ultimately an American win at the end of the day, but that game could have really flipped in the middle frame. Finland was right there.
I'm not buying it.
Okay.
I don't think that here's the way I'll say it. Finland, they fought because they always do. We knew they would. But here's my question for you. Was Team USA ever not in control of the game? Were they ever on their heels? Finland was scrappy. They were competitive, but was the US ever not in control?
Yeah, no.
I don't think the answer to that is yes.
Yeah, and that's why I said, again, it ultimately probably would have been an American win anyways, but just that tenacity that USA played with, how much focus there was on physicality. I would have just been curious if Haula scores or if they score on that power play where they had the 4-on-3. Does USA get knocked off their game at all, or do you think they were just too strong the whole time?
Yeah, I don't play the ifs and buts game.
Fair.
I mean, you could do that a million times with, well, what if Sweden, scored against Canada? No, I mean, doesn't make any sense. I didn't see a moment where the U.S. wasn't in control, and that's not me putting blinders on. They were far from perfect. But that said, I feel like they were in a pretty decent spot the whole way through, and that it was a matter of just kind of getting one, and then the floodgates opened.
So we kind of knew Finland. They were fighting an uphill battle coming into this with what was happening on their blue line, Frank. After seeing what you did there, I guess the way I'll frame this is that third period going to be the worst period Finland plays, or are those first two periods going to be the best we see from Finland?
I would lean toward it being the best we see from Finland because, again, they don't play Canada until Monday, but they're going to have their hands full, and I think Sweden's going to be an issue too. I don't think it's going to be as big of a blowout, but I still think it's a multi-goal victory on Saturday for Sweden.
Yeah, and again, both Sweden and Canada, based on that first result, Sweden losing, Canada only getting 2 points, very good chance Finland's going up against two teams that are going to be playing for their lives in this tournament in their next two games.
So I was going to say, let's talk quickly, though, about the rule change, because the NHL and NHLPA have agreed this morning with Cale Makar ill and missing practice, that because Shea Theodore is also out of the lineup, that technically the Canadians are down to 5 defensemen as of this morning. So just for everyone's clarity, the rule previously was you must dip under a certain threshold in order for that to happen. They were asking for this yesterday. And so my issue here is A, we're making up rules on the fly, and B, all you have to do is not send one guy out for practice today, and all of a sudden this is like,
well, like, so let's
I'm not saying he's not sick. I'm just saying, so you ask for, hey, what happens if someone gets hurt in practice or gets hurt in warm-ups? The what if, and then now all of a sudden that happens, and we're changing rules in the middle of a tournament. So everyone knew what the rules were heading into this. Mm-hmm. So to then push to try and make it be different because it suits your needs.
I'm with you 100%. To me, the making up the rules on the fly, here's a simple solution for the NHL. Out of the gates, just say, if someone gets hurt, you can replace him. Who would have argued with that? Nobody. And then we would have had no problem. And to me, what's now stopping, like, what if Team USA, let's say they would have only won 2-1 yesterday, and they're going, shit, we kind of need more scoring. And they see this happen to Canada. What if they were to just go, Brock Nelson and Chris Kreider are sick. We need to add Cole Caulfield. We're going to bring him in. Why? Right? Like, if you want to play that game.
But they were asking for it. And then, oh, by the way, he just happens to be sick today. It doesn't paint a good picture. No one's questioning the legitimacy of Shea Theodore's injury.
No.
But you've got 6 otherwise healthy defensemen. If you're going to say,
I'm with you.
Does anyone think that Cale Makar is not playing on Saturday against Team USA?
Not a chance.
So Travis Sanheim draws in. Like, if you wanted Thomas Harley on the team, then you should have picked him. Simple as that.
Yep, I'm with you, Frank. Okay, we're going to continue the conversation about Canada and USA in a couple of minutes with Jon Goyens. But for now, it is Valentine's Day. Frank, I'm very excited for our date later on tonight, by the way. But you always do your Deadline Matchmaker article on February 14th. And as always,
I'm everyone's heartthrob.
Yes. So I want to go through a couple of these situations that you've brought up, a couple of matchmakers that you've put together. You mentioned earlier in the week the market for Scott Laughton maybe heating up. Where do you have him going?
I have Scott Laughton going to the Washington Capitals in exchange for a 2026 first-round pick. First off, let me preface this by saying the first team that throws a first-round pick at the Philadelphia Flyers is going to get him.
Okay.
I believe they already have a second-round pick on the table from a team. And I think with what Washington is after, Scott Laughton's the perfect fit. They're looking for a third-line center. Lars Eller hasn't done the job. You bump Lars Eller down to your 4C, perfect fit. And Scott Laughton is not a rental. So for a team that is trying to compete for a Stanley Cup, has a 10-point lead on their division, wants to win for Alex Ovechkin, you help solidify your offense. You bring in someone that's defensively responsible and really well-liked. And if you're the Flyers, you might have to hold your nose a little bit to trade Scott Laughton to a division rival. But you take the best deal available, and this would be it. And I would ask for a 2026 first-round pick for a couple reasons. One, the Flyers already have 3 first-round picks in 2025. We know that this is a less deep draft than usual. So you bet on 2 things. One, that the draft class is much better in 2026. And 2, you bet on perhaps the Washington Capitals regressing a little bit. Will some of these guys still have career years again? Maybe you can, if you're Washington, add some protections into this. Maybe this feels like a reach. Maybe the Flyers won't get a first-round pick for Scott Laughton. Maybe he won't move then. But that's the whole point of the matchmaker game, is to get people to think. Yeah. People have been saying Leafs, Jets, different places for Scott Laughton to land. I think Washington is just as good a fit or candidate as anyone else.
Okay, there's a few more here I want to get to. Sometimes you just have a type. It's blondes, it's redheads, it's whatever it is. Do the Dallas Stars have a type in Finnish defensemen?
Maybe.
Uh-huh.
So Rasmus Ristolainen, not to stick with the Flyers, but that was another guy that I had moving to the Dallas Stars. And I did it straight up 1-for-1 in exchange for Leon Bichelle. Now, I know I've seen Stars fans in my mentions today. Yep. They're not happy. They don't want to give up a 20-year-old defenseman.
You have to give to get, though.
But here's the thing. Look at the left side defense for the Dallas Stars moving forward. Miro Heiskanen. You've got Esa Lindell signed to a longer-term deal. And the guy we were just talking about, Thomas Harley. All 3 left-shot defensemen. What's the path for Leon Bichelle? Are you going to take one of those guys and move him to the right? Are you going to move Bichelle to the right side? All possible. I'm just saying, give me the path for Bichelle moving forward, and then I'll understand it a little bit better.
He's a luxury for them right now.
I think so. And if you don't want to dig it further into your draft capital, and if you're the Flyers, you want a ready-made prospect. You want someone closer to the NHL. You're trading out Ristolainen. Bring in another giant in Bichelle at 6'6", left side guy. But in my view, the biggest thing separating the Dallas Stars from competing for a Stanley Cup this year is the right side of their defense. It's not good enough. Bringing in Cody Ceci is a nice improvement to that, but that's not it. It can't be it.
Yeah.
And so you've got LTIR money potentially from Miro Heiskanen. You don't need the Flyers to retain on Ristolainen. He'd be the 5th prominent Finn on that roster. And then beyond that, you then have him for another year. So you're giving up a high-end prospect in your view. You've got others, but you've got someone now in Ristolainen that could be part of your team for 2 playoff runs, which I think it's not a massive improvement, but it's a big enough improvement that CC and Ristolainen together on the right side, I think, takes this team up a notch.
Couple more for you. The belle of the ball, Brock Nelson.
I got Brock Nelson going to the Winnipeg Jets. Everyone's talked and wants to link Brock Nelson to the Minnesota Wild. I get why. He's from Minnesota. He made this Team USA team. Who's the GM? Bill Guerin. Understand it completely. That said, and he's a good fit there, but let's change it up just for the sake of changing it up. It's a matchmaker game. I get to make the decisions here. And so I'm sending him to Winnipeg, and I'm doing it for a 1st-round pick, a 3rd-round pick, and Rasmus Kupari. And the Islanders get a younger player back who really hasn't found his form in the NHL. They get some nice draft capital. And for the Jets, the issue has not – first off, I think he's the type of ceiling you want for a 2C. Yeah. If you can go Scheifele, Nelson, Adam Lowry down the middle, I think you are really well situated if you're Winnipeg. And the cost isn't exorbitant. It's going to be a late pick. We just talked about this draft being not that good.
But maybe you can sign him.
But that's the thing, is it's not been hard for the Jets to trade for players. It's been hard for the Jets to keep players once they trade for them. Little known fact, or maybe not, pull up the map. War Road, Minnesota, where Brock Nelson is from, is closer to Winnipeg than it is to St. Paul, where the Wild play. So maybe you have a fighting chance to keep him as he gets closer to free agency, or maybe that's a deal that you can work out that I think really improves the Winnipeg Jets' chances to win. And not only that, but then would allow you also to focus a little bit on maybe improving that defense.
Fair. Last one for you, Frank. Getting back with your ex on Valentine's Day, rarely a good idea, but in the words of Tobias Funke, maybe it'll work for us, and maybe it'll work for the Devils and Kyle Palmieri.
I like it. I think, look, the Devils need a secondary scoring bump. They could probably use a 3rd-line center. But that said, on the wing, Palmieri's a good fit. He's on track for 24 goals. Is not the 30 that he had last season, but he's from Jersey, the pride of St. Peter's Prep. He's a guy that already spent 6 years with the Devils and would be an obvious, comfortable fit for a guy that has a 16-team no-trade clause. So the Islanders have some decisions to make. We know that they still think that they're in the playoff hunt. I think that's fool's gold. I see Nelson and Palmieri moving on to where to be determined, but I think these fits are as good as any others.
All right, let's get to our big segment for the day. Always a pleasure to welcome our friend Jon Goyens to the show with the Coach's Room. It's brought to you by Charm Diamond Centers. You can find them online at charmdiamondcenters.com. Proudly Canadian-owned and operated since 1972 with more than 85 locations across the country through Charm and their sister brands. You can get a custom ring built and delivered in less than 4 weeks with the Charm Masterpiece program, and it all comes with their unbeatable pricing policy. Check out their large selection of Canadian lab-grown diamonds and mine diamonds, and you can also find out more information about how you can apply for a Charm Diamond Flexity card, which allows you to get approved for no interest financing on your purchase in minutes. For more information on everything they can offer you for the big moments in your life, go to charmdiamondcenters.com. And the big moment of this Four Nations Faceoff, Jon Goyens, is going to come tomorrow night when it's Canada versus USA, 8 p.m. at the Bell Center. And let's maybe just start with this, how Team Canada looked against Sweden, and a little bit of a breakdown there. When it comes to creating offense, it was evident that it was a fast-paced game, but there wasn't a flurry of chances. Shots on goal were low. What did you make of the Canadian offensive attack in Game 1?
Well, I think it was very obvious that they were going to have to be very, very diverse in the way they're going to try to attack, because early on, you've got some really good defenders for Sweden, and they're taking up a lot of space in the neutral zone, a long reach, good gaps. So it wasn't going to be this fire wagon hockey where you're going to see only rush chances. Canada, knowing that they've got a well-versed group, they know that they're going to have to maybe place and chase. They're going to have to embrace long stretches of ozone play, cycle play, and that type of stuff. And at times, just meat and potato type of offense. So when we looked at the clips and how they were creating their chances and how they were scoring, they were actually getting a lot of opportunities in a variety of ways. And the clips from game one will clearly show their ability to be diversified. So let's fire those up. So we see here, even like defending the rush. So you got Parayko's got an early gap. He establishes that early, and you look how tight they are defensively. So what Sweden does to them, they'll do right back to them. And guys like Parayko know they're not going to overhandle the puck. Let's move that puck. The one or two times that Sweden got caught outside dots, it created these odd-man situations. And I thought Braden Point exploited Sweden a ton of times. Now let's get in on the forecheck. Simplicity. The moment, you guys know I like trap goals, skate through the trap, you are going to ignite that D2 dive. And now instead of playing on a quadrant, you open the zone. Forecheck. Look at this zoom play, a little tiny pass by McDavid to play the give and go with Mitch Marner. So if you think you're going to kill them on the wall, they still have enough nifty skill to make you pay. Now watch Crosby. He's so far on the forecheck, but if you are facing the wrong way, elite sticks by Sidney Crosby, simplicity creates an opportunity for Mark Stone coming in late off a line change. And then when in doubt, get guys moving. A guy like Devon Taves notices Mitch Marner's going to cover him on D. Now just play hockey. Don't worry about playing your position. And you got to expose teams who end up defending three guys high, and it opens up the entire zone. And then when in doubt, transition game. You've got speed. You got the Braden Points of the world. It's little puck placements and passes. Now you get your one opportunity, your second opportunity, you're diving in because you've created confusion on the back check, and that leaves Parayko wide open. And we saw them all night. They do not cheat in the D zone. They play a really collapsed defensive zone, and this is a play, that deep delay by Seravalli. Tampa uses it all the time, and look how quickly Devon Taves comes from the bench. He's not coming from the D zone. He's coming from the bench. And again, there's the D zone collapse. They don't cheat themselves. No one overskated that turnover. And what does it lead to? It leads to Crosby wheeling and dealing down the wing, another deep delay, Mark Stone not skating fast and being covered, being poised and getting open.
It's interesting you mentioned the deep delay in Tampa to then see three guys from Tampa on the same line today in practice. So wonder if we're going to see some John Cooper magic in this game on Saturday night. But I'm real curious. You know, we saw their defensive zone play. We saw some of the things they were able to create offensively. And we only saw a little bit from you on the neutral zone. Did Canada pick well enough through what Sweden tried to clog it up? Like, they did a pretty decent job with that 1-3-1 to really make life difficult with the choices that Canada had to make.
Yeah, they, that's the thing. You could also play it at a certain pace where you don't allow teams to get established. And I think that as the game went along, you started seeing a lot less of established neutral zone forechecks because the puck was moving so quickly, whether it be up the wall or east-west, or guys are just willing to get to the red line and put it in, that guys weren't messing around with neutral zone turnovers potentially, which we actually saw from Finland yesterday. I thought that they would keep pucks a little bit more outside dots. They were fueling USA's opportunities to play off the rush. So I think Sweden also came to that realization that they have to embrace getting in deep and playing in a way that the offensive zone is key. The neutral zone is just a conduit to getting there and establishing some zone time.
Okay, so we know that Canada can play pretty much any style you want to throw at them. We talked about the idea that the U.S. is going to be more physical than certainly what Canada saw in Game 1. When you look back on last night's game between the U.S. and Finland, we know the Tkachuks were monsters, but what did you see when you looked at the tape?
Well, again, they don't cheat themselves. Again, another team that can, like Canada, can score in a variety of ways. But when it came down to it, it's which team is going to play team hockey the earliest. And we all know what's coach talk, what's hockey talk. It's breakouts, it's clean exits as much as possible. It's establishing your forecheck. It's establishing physicality. And that was the thing. Even when it wasn't a hit to blow you up, they were still getting their pound of flesh. Every opportunity, a white jersey was nearby. And then that got Finland turned around to the point where they're trying to make exit plays facing their own goal line. When they're not facing up ice, that makes it much more difficult for themselves to have clean exits. And it puts the pressure on the opposing team to make plays indirect as well, which means they're not controlling that puck as much as they want. So, I mean, we could go, you want to go to the Sweden clips first and see little elements of what they're doing, and then we could see how the Tkachuk brothers really establish the Bash Brothers style of hockey, as you mentioned earlier. So Sweden, off of certain plays, breakouts, they're willing to get up ice. They needed to play a lot more connected hockey. And when they slowed down certain situations, I thought Doughty at times struggled with his gap. And this was a big goal for Sweden, as we know. The other part that they started establishing was rolling 3 guys high. And why I think that's important is because in a team season, you understand your switches and your handoffs in a defensive zone. In a short-term tournament, watch again, we're going to see 3 guys high. It creates chaos and it creates misdirection, and guys all of a sudden end up open. And if not for Binnington on a few of these, we're not even going to overtime, right? And it's not that Canada missed out on opportunities, but it's these plays where they roll 3 high and then they get guys diving in, and it actually leads to the Brodin goal where he's on his own, and it's like who gets who? Who gets who? Same thing on the goal off the faceoff. They end up 3 high. Look, they're 4 high. And it creates that confusion, which establishes a 2-on-1 down low.
So we saw plenty of chemistry from Canada, right? Like the little, you just highlighted the one little Crosby pass. We saw a million of those throughout the game. Is it fair to say, and maybe I'm reaching here, that as much chemistry as Canada had, that Sweden was actually the more connected team?
Oh, yeah. I think in transition, they had some really, really great reads. I think a lot of the Swedish players that were playing, especially in the top 6, all kind of play alike. So the ability to read off each other was a little easier and a little bit more fluid. Whereas maybe for Canada's top 6 or top 9, they don't all necessarily play the same way, or they're used to being the straw that stirs the drink, so to speak. So it wasn't meshing as smoothly as they wanted early on.
That's fair. Let's wrap up with the Tkachuks. Can't get better chemistry than
absolutely.
putting 2 brothers together. What did you love about their game?
It's just the crashing and banging. We're going to go right off this face-off. When you got to handle these 2 guys with their ability to deflect pucks at the net right off a face-off, that's pure chaos. And off this chaos, they end up with 3 shots on net. 3 shots on net from, a matter of a foot or 2. Then you see here on a forecheck, look at the 2 of them. Guys, share the puck. Look at the deflection. Share the puck. They're both deflecting it at the same time, and they're net front. Then it's things like forecheck. Brady Tkachuk, he's going to reload. He's going to support his D-man. It goes back down low. You give him any time and space, the big man's got some great mitts in tight. And then Matthew Tkachuk reads a poor PK by Finland and recognizes that Werenski's going to be able to thread the needle to the net, and we know his ability to deflect pucks and bury tap-ins.
30 seconds or less. What do you think goes down tomorrow night?
Oh, I think it's going to overtime. I think why not? It's going to go to overtime, and it's I can't. I have to say Canada's going to win.
Have to. There you go.
I've got the U.S. 3-2, but that's max chaos is OT, because then the standings get all jumbled. And you were saying this, if you want chaos, that's what you want as an OT game.
So the best case scenario, if you want both games on Monday to mean the most, is a Canada overtime win, because then them and USA are both at 4, and a Sweden regulation win means all 3 of them have 4 points going to Monday, which would certainly be electric. Speaking of electric, your analysis was electric, Jon Goyens. As always, appreciate your time. Thanks for doing this.
Thanks, guys.
All right, we're going to cruise along to our Ask DFO inbox question. It's brought to you by our friends over at JP Weisers. Proud to be the official whiskey of the NHL. JP Weisers is offering Canadian hockey fans a premium drink choice to enhance every game night experience across the country, whether it's a regular season game, whether it's a game with a little bit of stakes like tomorrow night between Canada and USA. Let me paint the picture. You're kicking your feet up at home, and you got a nice cold glass of JP Weisers in your hand. And tomorrow night, Canada-USA is going to be electric. Frank, before we wrap up with a little bit more Canada-USA, your Ask DFO, chart a path to victory for Finland tomorrow. Do you think they have one? Okay.
And look, I'm not saying it's impossible. This wouldn't be like miracle on ice level upset, but Finland is way down in defense, and I think this Sweden team is just a notch below the U.S. and Canada. That I think they're really good.
Yeah, unless UC Saros has the game of his life, Frank, I think I agree with you. And what we've seen through the first 2 games, it's more likely Philip Gustafsson ends up being the better goalie in that matchup. Let's get to our daily bets for Bet365. Download the app today. Use the promo code NATION. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. 3, 6, 5 tomorrow night. Canada versus USA. Frank on the line, or at least the betting line, I should say, for this game. Canada does come in as slight favorites, minus 115 to minus 105. So it's basically a pick.
Feels like the kind of like 3 points that you get if you're the NFL team at home. That's kind of, it's like you get the extra little juice.
Looking at the goal scorers here in this hockey game, if I had to pick out one guy who I love, I picked Matt Tkachuk yesterday, came through for me. Brady Tkachuk is all the way down at plus 400 on the anytime goal market. Sign me up.
That's pretty good juice. Yeah. And I would say we're probably due for an Austin Matthews goal as well.
Yeah, I don't love that. Matthews, the odds-on favorite at plus 190. Frank, to wrap things up with a little bit of garbage time, the booing of the anthem, it is a complex conversation, I think, because there are layers to it. But what did you make of that last night at the Bell Center?
Well, being a proud flag-waving American, it's obviously disappointing. But that said, I understand why. There's been inflammatory, unnecessary commentary coming from the President of the United States that, frankly, is unnecessary. Mm-hmm. So when you have that, I understand what Canadians are feeling. If this were the inverse, I would be feeling probably pretty similarly. That said, what that has done is created a charged environment. Yeah. And it adds another layer to this. This isn't the Miracle on Ice. This isn't the Olympics. But why did that game mean so much? It's because it wasn't just a group of college kids going up against the best hockey team of all time in the Soviets. It was because there was also the backdrop of the Cold War, and our countries aren't at war. And anyone who knows anything about history knows that Canada has been not just our biggest friend, but also greatest ally, the country that's had our backs at our darkest moments. And so when I look at this, I wish we could all get along better. Mm-hmm. And I think I speak for everyone when I say that. But it's created an environment on Saturday that is going to just add another layer to what's already a really intense game in general. And it brings something else to it that is going to make for some really interesting theater. This is an interesting time in the world.
Yeah, very well said by you, Frank. Off the ice, let's be better friends. On the ice, oh boy, it's going to be anything but friendship between Canada and USA tomorrow night. Appreciate everybody tuning in. Appreciate Jon Goyens swinging by.
Just wanted to give a quick shout out to Lacage, who have been awesome to host us all week. Tremendous setting right out here inside the Bell Center. So if you come to Montreal, come get a beer, come get something to eat at Lacage. Really appreciate them. JP Weisers, Bet365 for helping support and make all this possible.
Yeah, it's been a ton of fun being out here in Montreal, and I echo what Frank said. The hospitality here at Lacage and in Montreal in general has been absolutely fantastic. We got more coverage coming tomorrow, so make sure you subscribe to the YouTube, keeping it locked on the website as well. Enjoy your Friday, everybody. Have a good night's sleep, because buckle up. Saturday is going to be one heck of a day of hockey. We'll chat with you then. What's up, hockey fans? If you like that video, do not forget to hit the like button and subscribe to the Daily Faceoff YouTube, because we have tons of great content, from exclusive interviews on the sheet with Jeff Merrick to instant analysis and breaking news with our Daily Faceoff insider, Frank Seravalli, on Daily Faceoff Live, to your go-to morning duo, Johnny Lazarus and Colby Cohen on Morning Cup of Hockey. Plenty of great content, wall-to-wall, team-to-team, all the way across the entire league. And you won't miss it if you subscribe.